We often hear about the role of young people in building peace and how important they are. When we talk about countering violent extremism, for too long the narrative has been that young people are either perpetrators or potential perpetrators. And we look at them as a great resource for possibly solving this issue, but we don't engage them meaningfully. And what I find most unique about Extremely Together is that it's leveraging activists from the grassroots and mentoring them and linking them with world leaders, people that have a world platform. It's a huge honor for me to be sitting next to Mr. Kofi Annan, who needs no introduction himself, but for him to leverage and activate his own networks to ensure that our voices are heard, that we are at this proverbial decision-making table. It's one of the unique initiatives that exist that actually focuses on leveraging and breaking down those silos that exist. Countering extremism has for too long been looked at just from a security lens, when there's opportunity to look at it from a development lens and from a peace-building lens as well too. And we have the opportunity to hear from Mr. Kofi Annan on what is the way forward. Just in a few segments that we've heard already, we've listened about right-wing terror, politically motivated violence, and radical jihadi extremism. And as much as there are so much differences in ideologies, there are also very real similarities. And we are seeing this universally with global attacks happening more and more frequent. I'd like to ask you, Mr. Kofi Annan, we see different reactions to different attacks in different parts of the world. What can we learn from these similarities between the groups and ideologies responsible for violent extremism attacks carried out across the world?
Thank you very much. But before I answer your question, let me share a story. You started by saying Kofi Annan, a man who doesn't need any introduction. You know, once my wife and I went on holidays and we wanted to walk around incognito. And suddenly we saw a group of 5 men staring at us, and one of them broke and made for me. And I said to my wife, we have a few weeks to go, and we've broken our cover. How are we going to have a quiet holidays and not be bothered by the village? By then, the fellow was on top of me, and he put his hand out and said, Morgan Freeman. May I have an autograph? And I said, sure. So I signed K. Freeman. He was very happy, and we were very happy and continued our holidays incognito. But it teaches you not to go around thinking everybody knows you, and you don't need introduction. You know. But I think the issue we are discussing here is an extremely important one in our world of today. It's global, it's transgenerational, it affects every society. There was a period when we thought it was concentrated in one region of the world. Today, as we've seen, it can hit any country, any region, at any time, and locations we don't expect, schools, churches. So we are all in this together, and we need to find a way of countering it. The world's population is young. 30% of that population, 50% of that population is under 30 years old. And you have to become engaged and help us deal with this issue. You have to do it your own way, in your own communities. And honestly, it doesn't have to be a big act. You know, sometimes it's enough to see somebody being bullied and to stop and say, enough, we won't take it anymore. You cannot treat this person this way. You have no idea what that does to the victim when an interested third party intervenes. It gives them courage, it gives them strength to fight back. And we need to speak up. We need to react. I know people are sometimes intimidated because those perpetrating the violence are brutal. And some people think if they speak up, they may be attacked. But we have to have the courage to speak up and not allow a small group to intimidate a whole nation or hijack a whole religion and allow them to get away with it because of silence, because we don't speak up.
So then I think the question that's on a lot of people's minds is, what is the right way to engage then in the space of countering violent extremism? Because my line of work is on the rehabilitation and reintegration and disengagement of youth fighters. And often the question that I'm posed with is this too soft of an approach? Our rationale in Somalia is less fighters, less fighting. And we believe that we can reach those that are directly involved with armed groups. But one of the things that young people, and myself particularly, I'm always met with is that young people have to fit in a certain box when it comes to countering extremism. Peer-to-peer engagement, volunteer work, sports and arts, all very important things, but it's as though governments, in the most part, decide what space young people can really lead, and the hard sectors are often debated. So I'd like to ask you, is there a right or wrong way to counter violent extremism, and what does the ideal reaction to it look like?
No, I don't think there is a tendency in some quarters to say, let's use force, that you have to use force to counter terrorism. I think you also have to use ideas, you have to use education, you have to encourage understanding and also reconciliation. Sometimes it's because people are alienated, people are desperate, that they become prone to being recruited by extremist groups. So your point is right. We need to tackle it at various levels, at the level of education, at the level of economic and social development, to reduce the despair, the depravity that sometimes pushes people to take actions that they would normally not take. We should also, within our own communities and societies, discuss these issues and be supportive of each other. There is safety in numbers. If we stand together and we work together, we all feel much stronger and are able to take it on. When you look at some of the regions where we've seen extremism take hold, the people are extremely poor, and sometimes these people using violence for power is often also political. They pretend it's religious, and often religion has nothing to do with it. And all of us, I don't know, there are many in this room who are religious, go to the mosque, go to church, or pray. But each of the major religions teaches us the same thing. Be merciful, be kind to your brother and sister, don't steal, don't lie. So religion, in a way, is education in social morality. How can we go and kill and pretend we're doing it in the name of religion? But the point is, when this small group takes over and use violence to kill and claim they are doing it in the name of this or that religion, the majority don't speak up because we are scared or we don't want to get involved, and they get away with it, and it escalates. So the idea of standing up and speaking up is extremely important.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that for the most part, we would agree that you can't bomb an ideology, and dialogue and fostering real relationships with the communities that are affected by violent extremism is the strongest entry point for real change. What can young leaders in this room today, and those unable to be with us here but following us on the live stream, practically do to countering violent extremism in their own communities?
I think we have already had 3 wonderful examples of what young people are doing and can do. And I would urge those in this room to think and think hard about what they can do, what contribution they can make in their own community to explain that there's more that unites us than divides us, to explain that today we live in pluralistic, humane societies, and we need to celebrate our diversity rather than turning on each other. And in fact, I know the movements of people across borders, migration, refugees, and others have raised tensions. But unfortunately, whether we like it or not, migration is going to continue. We've been walking and migrating since the beginning. And recently, a group of scientists have worked together, 3 different researchers came to the same conclusion, that migration started from one single migration 50,000 to 80,000 years ago in Africa. We are all sons and daughters of Lucy. And we've been moving on since then. And so migration will continue. And we have to learn how we manage the migration in a manner that is in the interest of everybody. We need to reach out to the other. And we should be careful not to be so concerned to divide the world into the other and me. And often we demonize the other. We need to avoid the tendency to demonize the other. Once you've demonized the other person, you can do whatever you want and you feel justified. And I often tell people to remember that even a heinous crime like genocide begins with the humiliation of one individual. It begins with humiliation of one individual and it takes on. And so do what you can as individuals, as small groups in your own community to try and stop some of these things. Don't leave it to governments alone. Governments have responsibility, companies have responsibility, NGOs, and we as individuals have responsibility. So let's all work together to stop this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.